All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in and actually what country you're in, because today is an exciting On the Fly with Kai. We love to bring to you some tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs. And I have been looking forward to this interview for a long time now. I think because of COVID and living in a lockdown where now we've realized all things are possible, I'm super excited to introduce to you a digital entrepreneur. Kayla MacArthur is a new friend of mine. We recently met, and I just kind of fell in love with her. I thought, wow, she's up to some great work with her transformational coach, but just really intrigued by her lifestyle of being a digital nomad. I think that's amazing. I'm always curious about that and would love to do that myself. And, I like that she was able to travel abroad with her cat. It's so fun. That's just amazing to me. And for 7 years, right, she supported clients creating their most potential and powerful lives. And I love that. So her coaching practice is just going crazy. She's traveling with her life partner who's in the midst of editing an incredible book. His name is Brian. And I love the fact that she had 4 years of residential counseling of coaching, young adults and with mental illness, and then taking that and parlayed it to an incredible online business and now living her life on the beaches of Mexico, at least for now. So please help me welcome to the show, Kayla. Hi, sweetie. How are you?
Hi, Kai. I'm so good. So happy to be here.
I've been really, really looking forward to this. And I think our viewers, whether they're watching it on replay, because I know they're going to be, that's where most of our viewers are, they're going to be excited. So, first of all, how did you end up in coaching? Because I know that's a kind of a random career coming out of your prestigious college. I know you graduated top of your class. So, tell us how you gravitated towards entrepreneurial so early in your career.
Yeah, and it's funny. I always thought I was late to the game, but I was not. Yeah, so I had my job as a residential counselor coaching young adults with mental illness, and that was a stepping stone job to become a therapist. That was my goal. But after 4 years of working in this really intense environment, it was tough to work with people who weren't excited to change. A lot of them were in this house because they had to be, because they were forced to be, not because they wanted to be. And so it really started to burn me out. And I came to a crossroads, my quarter life crisis, I call it, where I just was so burnt out. And so I don't want to go back to school again. Like, what am I doing with my life? And so, what do you do in that moment? Well, you go on a spontaneous road trip with your best friend across America. And so I did that. I left to just kind of find answers. I was also healing from a really bad breakup. And so my friend and I, we just finally did something that we always said we wanted to do. I mean, this was on our agenda for so long, and we kind of pushed it to the side, which so many people can relate, right? We push our dreams to the side. So we did it. We went. And on that trip, I really found my power, my inner power. I realized that I am the creator of my life. And if I can create this, what else can I create? And so people always told me, you make a great life coach. And I'm like, what's a life coach? So I started to do some research when I came back and ultimately decided to go and get my health and wellness certification to be a health and wellness coach. And so I entered the industry from that angle. However, over the years, I've been doing this for 7 years now. I've transitioned to being a transformational coach and working with people on their inner selves. So yeah, that's my journey.
I love that. I think a lot of us either, you have to get more education to make more money or, go back to school, or you're going to have to switch careers or something. So when, you're at a dead end and all things are possible, what's new? Where did you go? I'm just curious on that first road trip with your girlfriend.
So we went across America. We went north first, and then we went all the way down California, the coast. And then from San Diego, we went kind of south back to Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts. So literally, we went straight across, down, and back over.
So
And I will say too, it wasn't COVID, but all the national parks shut down the day that we left because the
why?
government shut down. It was back in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
Travel has always come with some obstacles for me.
For sure, but it sounds like you got the bug because you took your business on the road. Tell us how that happened. So we see now how you went from, school to employee to entrepreneur. How did you go to digital nomad and make that transition? What was that like?
Yeah, so I think from the start, becoming a digital nomad was always my dream because on that road trip, I mean, I still remember coming around a bend in Oregon with the sun glinting on the water and the music on, and just feeling these goosebumps prickle up my arms, and just really feeling this is what it is like to be fully alive. This is how I want to live every day of my life. I want freedom. And so from the start, creating a business that I would be able to bring on the road eventually was the plan. It took me about 4.5 years to get to that point where I was ready to not have another job. I did have a part-time job supporting me while I was growing my business. And
Smart.
so in October 2019, I took the leap and decided now's the time. I'm ready to go full time. I can fully support myself, and it's time to travel. It's time to go explore different parts of the world.
So what did that look like for you? I know you said, how did you pick your spots, and what is the strategy kind of behind that? So did you just throw a dart at a map, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so in October 2019, I um, I wasn't. I ended up becoming a full-time entrepreneur because the elderly woman I was taking care of, unfortunately and very sadly, she did pass away. But right before she passed away, I was actually planning on going to Bali. And Bali was somewhere that I had been before, and I wanted to go back. And so at that point, when I scheduled that trip, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go on this trip. It's going to be a month. I didn't know I was going to become a full-time entrepreneur at that point. But I picked Bali because it was calling to me. And I think for everyone here on the live that's listening, really tap in and tune in. Where are you feeling drawn to? Where are you feeling called to? What's somewhere that you've always wanted to explore, that you've always wanted to experience? And I think that's always a good place to start. My journey might have gone very differently if it weren't for COVID. 2020 was supposed to be my breakout nomadic year, but that definitely dictated a little more of where I was able to go and where I chose to go. So,
So where did you choose to go when COVID hit? How did that work for you?
yeah, so when COVID hit, I was in Bali. I was on a month-long trip with a travel community, and Bali ended at the end of February. My flight ended up getting canceled, so I had to stay an extra week, and then I got home right under the wire. So, I was back home with my parents at the time. I think the world went into a lockdown for about 3 months. We were locked down, and then also in 2020, I was looking to find my partner. And when COVID hit, I was pretty devastated, thinking, okay, I'm not going to be able to date. Like, I'm not an online dater. I like meeting people in person. But I started networking and talking to people like, who do you know who is like X, Y, and Z? And eventually I met someone who introduced me to my now partner, Ryan. And so Ryan and I hopped on a Zoom call because that was all that we could do. And at the end of the call, he said he was thinking about moving down to Mexico. And after being in lockdown for 3 months, and things were starting to, we were starting to come back into some semi-normalcy state, I was impressed and I was intrigued. And so we ended up moving down to Mexico together. 2 bedrooms, roommate situation. But yeah. So I didn't really necessarily choose Mexico, but it just fell in my lap.
And you were open. So didn't you move to Tulum first and then travel from there and see where you like? Because you live in a very small beach community now.
Yes. We were in Tulum for a while, and then we came back to Mexico again and did a 5-month tour, one destination per each month. And we really fell in love with Sayulita, which is where we are now.
And then I know you said there's a lot of challenges with visas and logistics, and you're like, I'm dealing with it right now. And that just reminded me that we should definitely talk about, what was the preparation like? So some of our listeners here are like, hey, I think I could do this. Like people that I work with, I told you we're completely home-based, so we could definitely do something like this. What are some logistics you need to be thinking about as far as visas, and how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really important thing. I think now that the world is becoming more digital. Countries are starting to adapt, and they're starting to offer longer term visas for digital nomads. So there are, I mean, a list of countries that are offering these visas, and they're usually for about a year. And you do need to have some forethought because there is a process. You might have to hire someone to help you. There's usually fees involved. There's usually an application involved. And so if you are planning on being somewhere longer than what a tourist visa will allow you, you need to definitely think about getting some visas. Luckily with Mexico, they offer a 6-month tourist visa. So we've been using the tourist visa to really explore the country and get a feel. And that's what I would recommend. I would recommend before you're thinking about getting a long-term visa, go to the country on a tourist visa and experience it and really see if you like it. See where you're drawn to, where you'd like to stay. And then from there, you can go ahead and apply for the longer term visa, which is what Ryan and I are doing right now. We're applying for temporary residency in Mexico, which will allow us to stay here for 4 years without having to, border hop. So.
And meaning you sometimes have to go back and stay, like in the States for a little while and then go back yeah. Okay. I understand. So, are you liking Mexico? You're going to be there for the next, do you think 4 years?
I think so. I think it's just, we've fallen in love with the country. It's an amazing place, and there's so much diversity here among just the landscape, and the people are just so friendly and so kind. It's a different world here. So I love it.
I love it. And I asked you if you spoke Spanish and you said, I'm working on it. I thought, wow. So that wasn't even a barrier for you.
No. I started learning in Tulum. I took classes with a teacher and started learning, and I can hold a basic conversation, which is good, and I can get around. So yeah, it's a work in progress.
And I know you, so we're seeing on the logistics here for a second, and I know you travel with a cat. What the heck? Did you take that cat with you when you were traveling all over from like Tulum to all these different places when you went once a month everywhere? And folks with pets, how did that work?
Yeah, so folks with pets, because this is really hard. We did not take my cat with us when we were in Tulum or when we were doing our 5-month tour. And it was heartbreaking to be away from my baby for so long. She did stay with my parents, so she had a loving space. But when we knew we wanted to come back for a longer term in one place, that's when we decided to make the move with her. And luckily, it's very easy to bring pets in between the US and Mexico and Canada, I believe. There's less paperwork involved, and it's pretty easy. But again, if you wanted to do like Europe or other countries, it's similar to the visa process. You really need to go online and do the research and read in between the lines and make sure you have everything in order so that you can bring your pet without any problems.
So interesting. I love that. And then we talked about, internet. So was that a consideration to where you ended up living? Because where you are, there's not even a grocery store. There's not, how do you pick your locations to make sure that you can stay digital?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think especially with Mexico is pretty infamous for power outages. And like the infrastructure can sometimes, they're not as quick. Like in the United States, if something's down, people are on it. In Mexico, it might take a little longer. You might be 2 or 3 days without internet as opposed to people getting on it in that moment. So one thing that really helps is to look up online, like what are some digital nomad hotspots? Like where in the world are digital nomads already going to? Because that's going to really like people have been doing this for a while, and they have been able to determine what internet is good, what internet is bad. And coming to Sayulita, we definitely had concerns because this is a more infamously known place for having poor internet. However, our landlords got fiber optics. So I think, again, if you are concerned about internet, if you need it for your work, like we used Airbnb to stay in the places in Tulum and on our 5-month trip. And I would just reach out to the hosts and say, hey, what's your internet speed? How is it? Is it bad? Is it good? So don't be afraid to ask those questions either. There's also usually Facebook groups that kind of correlate to every destination. So there's like a digital nomads Sayulita group. There's a digital nomads Tulum group. So if you join that Facebook group ahead of time, wherever you're planning on going, you can start to ask some questions and hear from people who are already living there or who have been there about their experience. So those Facebook groups have been really key too in gleaning some info.
Wow. Wow. Good stuff. This is great. Let's stay on that, seriously, on the logistics. And then I want to go into some of the soft things that have happened for you as far as your transformation by living abroad. But real quickly, sort of my last question on the logistics would be being a minimalist. I mean, you certainly can't start to accumulate tchotchkes and mementos. And so what is your sort of rule of thumb as you travel? Like if you buy something, do you have to get rid of something? How do you maintain that minimalist lifestyle so you can continue to live on the road?
Yeah, that is such a great question. Because yeah, we do have to be really careful with what we buy because we can't bring more out than what we brought in. So how I've kind of navigated this is that when I come to Mexico, because I know I'm coming for a longer period of time, I'll usually stock up on my, shampoo, conditioner. I'll bring my favorite foods that they don't have here. So I'll create a lot of room in my suitcase, bringing stuff here. And then when I use that stuff here, I know I have a little bit of space to be able to bring some stuff back. But again, it goes back to asking yourself, you mentioned tchotchkes. I don't buy tchotchkes. Like that's not something, I'm not a stuff person as is, but there are some things that we bought. We bought these really beautiful mugs. We bought a really beautiful blanket and we use those things every day now. So I know that we'll use them, when we've moved on from this place. So I think it's really just tuning into, am I going to use this? Like, do I want this and need this? And I have a storage at home where I have all of my stuff, which I don't have that much stuff. But it's interesting because I'm only living with one suitcase for however much time. So I don't even have access to my entire wardrobe. It's really interesting. You really figure out what you wear, what you don't wear, and it's easier to kind of sort through that and get rid of stuff once you come home. So it's I come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like I've gone shopping I've just went shopping and now I have all this new stuff to wear, but it's all my old stuff. So
So you're going to go shopping in your own closet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly.
And then I said that was going to be my last one on this topic, but I've got one more for you. You live, and we talked about this. You live in a vacation destination. I mean, this is places people want to go to just chill. And so there's a lot of distractions just in general when you're work for yourself from home. And a lot of people figured that out. They're like, gosh, I've got dishes and kids and demands. But then now you're going to add this amazing, beautiful beach steps away from your place. How do you, align your day to make sure that you don't just go play, honestly?
Yes, this is a great question. I think a lot of people who see the life that I'm living are like, oh, when are you going to come back from your vacation? Or when are you going to get back to reality? And I'm just like, this is my reality. So I think it's a mindset shift. You can't think of yourself on vacation. You have to think of yourself as living a lifestyle. This is your life now, similar to how it is at home, but you just have different scenery. And so I think it can be hard, especially if you're doing a month-to-month trip like we did, because you want to see places, you want to do things, you don't want to leave and feel like you didn't get the full experience. But the way that Ryan and I have worked it out is Monday through Friday, we're working. I do take Wednesday off, but it's more of a creative rest day. So I might go down to the beach and do some writing. But then on the weekends, we use that time to explore. So the things that we wouldn't want to miss out on, that's when we do those things, like the hike to Monkey Mountain or exploring some of the different beaches around here. We took a weekend trip to Yalapa, which is another little beach town down below Puerto Vallarta. So it's really about just knowing that this is a lifestyle, not a vacation. You can't just go out on a Monday. I mean, you can if you want, but you have to maintain some kind of work-life balance and some kind of schedule. And I think just having that Monday through Friday mindset, this is our life, really helps.
Absolutely. And if you're, completely digital, then you could pick what days you want to work. Maybe you don't want to work Monday, Tuesday because you want to beat the crowds or, so I do a lot of that too. I mean, in the States, I'll work, on a Saturday. And then I'll take a random, like I took yesterday off for my husband's birthday. And so I think that gives us that flexibility too. That's amazing. And you've got it on steroids for sure. So let's transition into how this has made you a better coach. You've got such different perspective now on, what really could be important in life and not the stuff and not the things. So how did this help you with kind of, the value of this travel has really been not only helping you transform your business, but yourself and helping you translate that to other people. Tell us about that mind shift that's happened for you since you've been, abroad.
Yeah. So I truly believe that everyone, and I know this is a privileged statement to make because not everyone can do this, but everyone who can do this, I do think living somewhere outside of your home country for an extended period of time is absolutely a necessary part of personal development. Being in Mexico for almost a year and a half, I've been able to kind of extricate myself from the United States and look at it outside of being in it. And I've also been able to sink into a different cultural context. I've been able to really feel into and observe how the culture works here, how people live here. And it's very different from the United States. And so I would say for me personally, the business aspect, when I go home to the United States, I immediately feel the pressure to work, to do, and to just burn the candle at both ends. And then when I leave the United States and I come here, there's an ease that kind of settles into my bones, because in Mexico, the cultural context is they are hard workers, but it's work hard, play harder. So they are about celebration, they are about family, they are about enjoying life and pleasure. And so we don't necessarily have that as strongly in the United States. It's more of a hustle culture. So to remove myself from that and to experience what it's like here, it's just absolutely, it's a total mindset shift. It's a totally different way of being. And I wouldn't have had access to this maybe as strongly as I do without coming to Mexico. Another example is in the United States, if you go anywhere, like go to a bar, go to the gym even, there's screens everywhere. They're playing the news constantly.
Yeah.
Here in Mexico, they don't do that. There's not really screens in restaurants, and there are a couple screens in our gym, but they're playing surfing competitions and weightlifting competitions. And I noticed that one day. I'm like, I never see the news on here. And so just that, the impact that has on your psyche is, now if I want to see the news, I have to go and seek it out. It's not just constantly blaring on me. So just imagine what kind of consciousness you can have access to if you go and sink into another culture. You get to see how different people live. And I think that can only help you as an individual. And I also think it helps me coach my clients, because it's almost like I have been able to go first, right? Like I've been able to step outside of my typical container, and I've been able to see, there's another way. There's different possibilities. There's other ways of operating that are harder to identify when you are in your own culture. So it's been quite the transformational journey.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you perspective, and I love that. And you're able to translate that into multiple different ways. I also like that, I don't know if you learned this there, but you're really good at boundaries. Like I'll ask you to do something, and you'll be like, "Yeah, no, that's not on that." And is that from there, or is that just something you've learned from your coaching experience?
I think that's been something that's more just me. I think that's been something that I'm kind of naturally good at. And not all the time, not in every circumstance, but I do try to be good about what I say I'm going to do, although Ryan would argue differently. Which again, it's definitely context dependent. But no, I'd say that's something more naturally within me, as
I love
opposed
that.
to coming from a different
And
culture.
I think as women, we like to say yes. And I noticed that from you, and I appreciated it. I thought it was really great. And if
Mhm.
you were to go back and maybe advise yourself, because now you've been there a year and a half, doing this, dream life, if you will, what would be like, now you're going to go back and you're going to advise yourself. What's maybe one or two things that you would tell yourself that, wow, you should do this a little bit different before you leave, or you should have checked this out? What are a couple mistakes maybe that you would tell yourself now for those who are listening that want to try something like this?
Yeah. So I would definitely say the first one is just I went in at first not really understanding that there can be obstacles or challenges that happen really quickly that you kind of have to be prepared for. And a little forethought is really helpful. So, for example, when the internet went out, I didn't have any backup plans. Now I have a backup plan. I extended my phone plan to Canada and Mexico and the United States, which most of my clients are from the United States. There are some in other parts of the world, so that's a little different story. But now that I have that phone plan, in case the internet goes out, I have a backup. I can call my clients, or I can use my data, cellular data, to get on Zoom with my clients outside of the US. So I think that's something that I would, think about differently, is just preparing for different situations and different scenarios. And then the other thing that I would prepare, like, I don't think it was necessarily a mistake, but I think something to be aware of is just knowing that there is a way that things are done in the United States. And that's not how it is everywhere else. So leaving room open to experience your culture, even the challenging things. Here in Mexico, time is not like a value. So if you have a problem, if your internet goes out, and in America they would come and fix it right away. That doesn't happen here necessarily. Or like a business says they're open from X time to X time. Usually in the United States, like, you would get fired if you closed down the shop. Here, it might not be the case. Like, they might close randomly, or they might go take a break, and you're like, wait, I thought you were open. So I think just allowing the grace and the room for things going differently than you might expect in your home country. And just allowing yourself to be okay with that, though, and to just have it as an experience. That's really important.
Well, I loved this conversation, and it went way faster than I thought. I knew it was going to go fast and be easy because this is such an interesting topic. But if somebody wanted to reach out to you, I know you're not really taking on a bunch of new coaching clients right now because you're helping Ryan with the book. But let's say they want to get on your waiting list, or they wanted to continue the conversation. Is there a way that somebody who's watching this after the fact can reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm always open to connect with anyone, hop on a virtual coffee. The best place to reach me is probably my website, www.kaylamacarthur.com, and there's a contact form on there. Or on Instagram, my handle is Kayla MacArthur. You can shoot me a private message, and we can chat more.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and put this on here so that folks can see it. So if you're watching this after the fact, please take note of that as well. And, set that. That's a very generous offer, the virtual coffee date. And see there. Any last minute things that you want to share with folks before we call it? Anything else that you wish you would have had a chance to share?
Um, no, I think I shared everything, but I will elaborate on the last point too. Like, if you are someone who is interested in creating this lifestyle, like, again, I'm happy to share. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to shoot over some tips for you in your specific situation. So don't be shy.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Kayla. I really appreciate you. And for everyone who joined us, we are here on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I try to bring some interesting people that I've met from my tribe so that you can take some time off your learning curve. So that we're going to bring you, honestly, some tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs, like I said. But these are things that I wish I knew and people that I trust that I can bring to you. So with that, we'll see you next Thursday for another great interview of the On the Fly with Kai. Thanks so much again, Kayla. Have a great one, everybody.